Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Northside Board of Trustees. Before calling this meeting to order, the board would like to take just a moment to briefly review some of the rules for conducting our meeting tonight. The order of business for this meeting is set out in the agenda. One item that you may notice on the agenda is the consent agenda. This item includes items that are considered routine and/or are of reoccurring nature. All the items listed under the consent agenda will be acted upon in one motion. If there is a consent agenda item which anyone here would like to address, please sign up to speak to that item and we will pull it from the consent motion and discuss it separately. The purpose of our meeting is to conduct board business, and for that reason, it is held in public. It is not a public forum, however. We do provide the opportunity for audience participation. If there is anyone who would like to address the board during an agenda item or citizens to be heard portion of the agenda, we ask that you please complete a sign-up sheet located the entrance to this room over by Monica. This is so we do not overlook anyone who would like to speak to the board. We will review the rules for addressing the board later in the meeting. Is there anyone here who would like to sign up to an agenda item and has not done so? We're good? All right, the meeting will then be officially called to order. Please stand as Trustee Reed leads us in the invocation and pledges of allegiance.
Almighty and merciful God, we ask your guidance and blessings upon this board, students, parents, patrons, teachers, and administrators as we are assembled here this evening in the common pursuit of this great nation's wealth, our children. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, our first agenda item tonight is the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Harrell, and members of the board. I want to start by thanking the members of our board for your support at the many back-to-school events that we hold every year, from our administrative picnic, our summer graduation, new teacher academies, and then, of course, starting today, convocations. I want to speaking of convocations, I want to take an opportunity while they're in the room. Actually, I saw Elizabeth earlier. She was here. Well, anyway, I'll say it anyway. To thank James and Elizabeth and the folks in Fine Arts, Pasquale and Monica and the folks in Communications. It was... Oh, sorry, Barry. I apologize.
He stood up differently.
Yeah. The staff know that is high praise. So sorry, Barry. But it's those folks and their attention to detail that made convocation and a brand new video and a brand new venue come off really, really well today. So thanks to those folks as well. I want to thank the board for your study of our budget issues. Budgeting, I don't know why it's way, but it seems like every year we actually spend more and more time on the budget. I don't know if that's David's influence or what, but we are nearing finalization of our budget for 17-18, and I'll say that I'm proud of what we were able to recommend as it keeps up with our growth. It improves our programming, adds modestly to compensation, and maintains high-quality health care for our employees. It also finishes out, or comes very close to finishing out, Bond 2014 without a tax increase during that entire cycle of either Bond 2010 or Bond 2014. Our budget model also looks to the future as we deal with the at least the short-term certainty that there will be no improvement in state funding. And so that leads me to a segue, now that we've ended the special session of the legislature, and at least to now, there's no talk about an additional session. To say that I'm disappointed in what the legislature was able to accomplish with regard to schools would be a significant understatement, but to say that I'm surprised would also be a lie. The legislature just finished a special session, and as you know, again, the Texas House tried to make some inroads to improve the decades-old problem of school funding in our state, but was, again, blocked by the Senate. Now, I will say, though, there are notable folks in both the House and the Senate who did work on behalf of public education, and many of those are in our Bexar County delegation. We're fortunate, for the most part, to have the delegation that we do in Bexar County. A school finance bill was passed at the end of the special session of the legislature. It was really intended to, for the most part, to cover those districts who were facing a funding cliff with ASETAR, as well as to help in a small degree for retired teachers. And to that degree, some small amount of good was done. But I need to be clear that the bill that was passed will do nothing for Northside School District. Not one additional dollar per student will come from that for Northside, or frankly for any other Bexar County schools. I'll just say with this, all of us who care about and believe in the power of public education need to be registered to vote, to get educated, and to vote coming up. Unfortunately, we have come to the point in time where the only way to get real change in the Texas legislature is to change some of the people who are in the Texas legislature. So I'll switch back to a positive note now and say that with the start of school, we'll put that behind us, and we'll focus on students and teachers. And I know I speak for the members of our board when I say I really look forward to seeing students and teachers back together next week. Dr. Harrell, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. The members of the board, are there any reports you'd like to share? And I don't have the clicker. Do you? Why don't we just raise our right hand if you'd like to talk? Let's do the old-fashioned way. All right, Mr. Lopez.
Go ahead, Karen, go.
No, you're okay. You're fine. Gentlemen first.
Well, I was just going to say, I wanted to comment, kind of echo what Brian had said and earlier about the convocations. It was a really great event, and again, it was a great job, Barry, and your team, and to James Machoka, and to all of the fine arts department that was there. They did a wonderful job in inspiring our new teachers and then our returning teachers. I thought it was very interesting to see, and what I really liked about it was the openness of the gymnasium. It really lent to the spirit and to the excitement. In just seeing those cheerleaders, or the pep squad and the cheerleaders, I want to say cheerleaders, not pep squad, they were doing their tosses. It really added to the effect of being inspired. They did a great job. Everybody did. You know, the communications department, Daryl and everybody there, you all did a great job. So I was really inspired. And then, you know, just hearing each other's speeches and about what inspired them. So great team. It was a great event. So I really appreciate it, and it was wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Karen.
Okay.
I'm going to say Ms. Freeman.
Sorry, thanks, Dr. Harrell. Just to report, we had a TASB board meeting just a few weeks ago, and there was a report about the TASB social media campaign. And I don't know if y'all paid attention, but there was a lot. TASB advanced with targeted social media advertising to various parts of Texas, trustees or whoever registered. So targeted advertising, and that whole campaign generated over 34,000 letters to our legislature. And of the 34,000 letters, there were 12,000 people who had signed up to be members in that social media campaign. And while we had heard, and TASB had heard from various people that they had received those letters, because you know where they're coming from, and that they did make a difference. One thing we also heard that our teachers, our educators, were active in this past legislative session. And in the trustee advocacy days that we had at the Capitol, there was certainly mention from the legislatures that came to us that said, those do make a difference. When you jam up the phone lines and the fax machines and all of that, it does make a difference. So thanks to, trustees and educators and everybody who participated with that. Regarding convocations and what Gerald said, it was just phenomenal. You walk in that gym and you see everybody, and you can't help but feel that you're part of something, that you're part of the Northside family, and you're part of something good, and that it's just a really good feeling to see everybody there and people coming together, and it truly is about the Northside family. So I loved it. It was great, and Dr. Woods, you did a great job. Sure.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hall. Also, I wanted to,
Okay.
I guess, repeat what Dr. Woods had just said, that we are looking forward to our teachers and students coming together again in the classroom, learning, but also building relationships. This evening, I was able to go to meet the teacher, my middle schooler, and it was exciting at the same time, and teachers were excited to see their students, and I think parents, there were more parents than there were students, and so it's so encouraging to see, and vice versa, the parents have their motives and students are again excited to get back at learning. But I wanted to also just recognize all those that were inspired by the eclipse yesterday. Our Twitter Northside was really showing our community coming together. Peace Middle School had a great turnout with community members, families, our teachers leading, administration, all throughout the district. And it was great to see our staff and encouraging our community to share in the experience with their children. And I wanted to make sure that we recognize our staff for those efforts. Thank you.
Great. Ms. Chumley, welcome.
Hi.
I am going to turn it over to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I do want to say a few words, though, after. Is there anybody
Yes.
else who wants?
Is there anybody else?
Okay.
Katie?
I, along with Melissa, attended the kickoff at Holmes High School on Monday, where we're trying to make sure that students do get to school in some of our more inner city areas. And speaking of cheerleaders and pep squads and bands and mariachis, they were all there. And all of the teachers from those elementary schools that feed into Holmes. And some of the teachers actually even got out and danced to the music. So in a choreographed piece, it was very well done, and certainly hopefully makes a difference for that community of people with their children, because it's so important, and to make sure that the children get there the first day of school so that they don't miss out on anything. And then they also have the parental support.
It's okay.
So thought that was a really great thing. And I do want to mention that, I've had some difficult times with my family, and so I've missed a number of meetings here, which in the 27 years I've been on the board, I don't think I've ever done that. And it's getting better, but it is taking me some time, and I thank you all for your support. Thanks. Robbie?
I just had a couple. Convocation was wonderful. I'm sure everyone has said that. And number one, I want to apologize for being late. I'm sorry. Walking out the door I had to take, so I apologize. And thank you, Carol, for taking this on short notice. I've had to do
Practice.
that twice for you with you now.
That's what I'm here for.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. Barry, what a great job. And Monica, thank you so much for today. You guys kept us moving and rocking and rolling, and it was wonderful. Gerald, please tell Elizabeth just thank you for just an outstanding job with our students. It was just really, really exciting. I spoke to my mentee, who is just on cloud nine, just very excited. She feels like she's been in a Broadway show. She's just so
better.
so excited about it. And Brian, you just make it look so easy. So thank you for doing that. And I wanted to thank, I'm not sure who was as responsible, but put on the new teacher luncheons. Those were last week for our new teachers, and that was staff development. They just did a really, really great job, and it was great to see all these young faces. I wasn't feeling as ill then. Anyway, but I think we're off to a good start.
Oh, I had.
Yes, ma'am.
I do want to, I know that Dr. Wood said it this morning that just about star scores. We aren't. We're so much more. And convocation really proved that. You could see it in the faces of the kids and our teachers and staff. You could see some of our police officers that were there and custodians and cafeteria workers all feel part of this wonderful Northside family. And Brian, you really set the tone for that. But I do want to mention we have 100, I want to double check, 117 schools were rated this year, right? 117, and they all met standard, which is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I don't want to say it's unheard of, but it's almost unheard of. I know that's a lot of hard work and a lot of focus on the standards and a lot of intervention and all kinds of things, but it takes everyone working hard, and the teachers Karen and I were at Warren yesterday, and there were a couple custodians walking through the hallway, and hallways that were, you could see yourself in the floor, and not just at the beginning of the year. I see it that way throughout the year, and the front of our buildings, behind our buildings are beautiful, and so it's everybody coming together. But the teachers were so excited. They did the amazing race, and they were amazing. They learning in different venues, but then went on top of the roof for the eclipse, and then really wanted me to use what limited power I have to get a swimming pool, right? Right, Karen, a swimming pool for 2024 when we have a total eclipse, a total. So we'll work on that, or at least a sprinkler, one of those rubber ducky ones. And then one thing our district, and this was the first time I was able to go to it, recognizes that it takes strong leaders to build strong schools, and the event, the picnic at Pedrati's, was bigger than a picnic. The leaders really felt valued, and they felt valued today when they got the letter from a student. That was just incredible. That'll go for many years to come. No one's retiring anytime soon. That was just wonderful. Thank you for the New Teacher Academy saying that. That was awesome. We have people saying we arrived to the promised land. Anyway, but and then Katie, I just wanted to say we do love you, and we missed you, and we're here for you. So.
All right, seeing no further lights, the next item of business on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is there a motion come for the board?
I motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Before we move on, I just wanted to bring the board's attention to something. It's on the awarding of bids. It's a requisition number 170-59710 to Caldwell Automotive Partners, LLC. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention because it's one of the reason that we are purchasing 7 Chevy Malibus is because we're trying to find a way to work around our lack of bus drivers. And so these vehicles will actually be used on our campuses to transport our special needs students. So I just thought that was a unique way for us to try to resolve some of the problems that we're having with not having enough bus drivers for transportation. Yeah, and Suburbans, so. All right, there being a motion for the board, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, and the motion carries. The next item of business on the agenda, citizens to be heard, but I believe we don't have any citizens. All right. The next item of business, Mr. Rostellini, it's your night tonight, business and finance.
It is indeed. I believe Dr. Woods has some comments before I kick off these items.
Thanks, David. So I do have some comments. I want to start, May, if I could, and just thank the board for your study of this issue and your patience as we've worked on compensation these many months, with the legislature ending its regular session, then promptly going into special session, and our desire to get it right, if you will. So tonight, we finally bring the full compensation plan to the board for adoption. And with that, David, we're off.
Thank you. We do have a brief presentation. I think with the delays from June and July, we've actually brought this presentation down to slides by 5, so we're down to 11 slides, so it'll be a much shorter presentation this evening. I do want to remind the board the process of getting to this point. We initially brought the compensation plan for the board to look at in April, with intentions of bringing recommendation to approve that in June. And as you're well aware, with legislative activity, we postponed that particular recommendation. We did come to the board in July with a recommendation to adopt a plan, which the board did. However, that plan didn't have any dollars attached to it, so this is where we are this evening. So with that, I'll walk through the plan that looks like what it looked like in April. We do want to talk about these 4 particular items: the historical pay increases, compensation proposal, and other recommendations that we did include in the compensation plan this year, and ultimately the budget impact, which you'll see later on in the adopted budget. From the historical pay increase perspective, this is a chart that shows from 2013-14 up through 16-17 5-year average of STEP employees, which includes all our teachers, librarian, counselors, etc., and our midpoint employees on a auxiliary and classified level and professional level. So this just gives us a little historical perspective. The next slide, actually we still are leading the pack in the Bexar County. This is a comparison with the identified school districts and the average of Bexar County. You can see the top pink line on this slide. It's a little darker pink in your agenda, but you can see that the district is still outperforming other districts as far as our pay goes. The next slide is actually just a recap of our compensation proposal for 17-18 as it relates to the STEP employees. Keep in mind the temporary salary increase that we applied for in July for July and August did not apply to these individuals. This is a handful of individuals that would have been impacted, so they will actually see an adjustment depending on what the board does this evening to go back and apply that compensation to those 2 months. But in our proposal, our increase in starting pay for teachers will go up by $865. And that's applying, the reason that happens is we do want to maintain the current gaps that we have from step to step, and we had applied a $1,200 increase in our step schedule, so that will bring up the starting pay to over $52,000, and it also, at the other end, our 30-year cap is actually extended up by a somewhat lesser amount, but an amount nonetheless. The next slide on the midpoint pay system, our initial application of the compensation increase was to apply a 2% general increase. Along with that, we actually, to maintain the integrity of those schedules, we apply a 1%, which is actually half of the general increase, to the structure adjustment before we do the particular general increase. We also had the opportunity this year in a tight budget situation to address some areas that have been traditionally hard for us to fill, and a lot of that is due to the market reviews. So those adjustments actually ended up ranging between 3 and 5%. In the midpoint adjustments, this is the area where we actually did go in and target some adjustments. You can see our non-certified professional, we actually applied a 3% general increase instead of a 2. Classified individuals at 4%. Special education IAs, we reclassified them and also applied a 3%. So their actual increase is going to be a little bit more than 3%. Bus drivers was probably one of our major areas of significance. We did adjust. We reclassified them and applied a 5%, which created a pretty significant increase for our bus drivers. That's not to say we're still having a little trouble finding those folks, so I will give a plug for Mr. Galindo, and if you can drive a bus, please contact us. And then in our maintenance grades area, we also applied a 3% midpoint. The next slide actually gives us a cost to these adjustments. Again, these are the midpoint adjustments, and you can see overall that would increase our compensation plan almost $6.3 million. Other recommendations that we did include on the next slide, we did include some adjustments to our substitute teachers on the short-term degreed substitutes and certified substitutes, and then also on the long-term degreed certified substitutes. This was pretty much market-driven, and again, Northside is staying in front of that particular issue. Other recommendations, we did look at our stipends, which is, again, this is somewhat of an annual review that the compensation department does. And we identified these 4 particular areas where we felt like we needed to make some adjustment in our stipends at a projected cost of $658,000. All that leads us to the recommendation of the budget impact of the recommendation. This evening, you can see our STEP employees, which again is our teacher, counselors, librarian, and nurses. That would impact our compensation about $9.5 million. Midpoint employees, as I just said, about 6.3. And other costs, these are driven off of payroll costs. That includes the benefits outside of the health insurance. That is a separate line item in our budget. The total increase to the compensation is roughly $18.7 million. Of that amount, what's absorbed in the general fund and what's included in the budget recommendation this evening is a little over $17 million. And with that, Madam President, the recommendation of the administration is to approve the compensation plan as presented.
Thank you.
I would move approval of the compensation
Second.
presented.
Thank you, Katie and Joseph. Gerald, as Finance Committee Chairman, do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
No, that was exactly what David had recommended during Finance Committee meeting, so.
Okay. It's just been a while, David.
Yes, ma'am.
Karen, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think we're very fortunate in Northside to be able to do this and provide the compensation plan that we have before us. Not every school district in Texas right now, especially what happened after this last legislative session with essentially no new money, Not everybody has the opportunity to approve such a compensation plan for their staff, so I'm very proud that we can do this,
I
or that
agree.
we're looking at this.
I agree with that. Not seeing any other lights. David, I just had one question because it's been a while since we've talked about this. The middle school athletic stipends,
Yes, ma'am.
talk to me about that. I can't remember what we're doing with that.
There's two areas that we addressed, and I'm like you, it's been a long time. There's two areas that we addressed. One was middle school volleyball. When we did a market study, we were below market, so we bumped it $100 or $200, relatively small amount. The other was the stipend, to introduce a stipend for the middle school soccer. So it's those two items.
Okay, so that's to introduce and have we talked about, or was there any discussion? Remember when we had talked about where Garcia does their athletic program, where we've added time that the coaches are there, and then we had Briscoe wanting to do that, and I know we've talked about other schools. So when a school requests a change to their athletic program, are we going to look at that in relation to the athletic stipend? Because what Garcia does, and they don't have an additional athletic stipend at this time, but it adds probably at least an hour and a half a day to those coaches' responsibilities. I just wanted to know, how does that fall into the mix when when a individual school asks for a change to a program that has a stipend connected with the teachers involved?
So the initial conversations I've had with the athletic director are to evaluate how that practice is scheduled, but also to make sure that the numbers justify the request for a change, that the number of athletes justify that. And then if we decide in that final analysis, we may come to the board a year from now or 10 months from now and say, hey, we think we need to look at this with regard to stipend. There's nothing in here that deals with that issue. I think it's going to require some more study before we're ready to look at that.
Okay, and so then is that whenever and it doesn't have to be involved with athletics, whenever any school asks to make a change to an existing program that increases the amount of time that we're asking our staff to be involved, is part of that process where we look at what their pay is and what their stipends are?
Yes, so that we can do an apples to apples comparison.
Okay, so there's kind of a checkbox in the
Right.
in the request to do this where we include that.
Yeah, our approach on our stipends, Ms. Chumbley, is actually to address the additional days for whatever the situation is. So anytime we start looking at these kinds of adjustments, and as Dr. Woods alluded to, apples to apples, we do take that into consideration and do build the additional time, if you will, into the stipend analysis. So,
Okay.
yes, the answer is yes.
Thank you. And with us making an increase in dual credit, are we still having problems finding dual credit teachers?
There are, Patty's here, she might be able to tell me better. There are areas of dual credit that remain challenging to find folks in, and then there are others that are not as problematic. But yeah, there are areas, especially math and science, where finding folks with a degree, some graduate hours in that area is still pretty tough.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I agree with Trustee Freeman. I think that we're really fortunate to be able, particularly with what we look in the horizon with our legislature, to be able to offer the salary increase that we are. And I think after talking to employees, I think a lot of them are aware of that and understanding of that. I think they have friends in other school districts that are talking about no salary increases. So,
Well, I want to be clear about the word fortunate, because fortunate is really about a lot of long-range planning that we've been doing for years. So I don't want folks to misinterpret that just fell out of the sky. Fortunate is about a lot of hard work. So thanks to the board, thanks to David and Wes and their staff, That's how we generated that good fortune, frankly. That's a lot of hard work. So thanks to all of you.
That's a good comment, Brian. We need to keep that in mind, that
Yeah.
that 5-year plan
Right,
is
right,
one of
yeah.
the reasons that we do
I don't
this.
want folks to think that, the money, we just went to the money tree and picked it and it's all good, Yeah.
Dr. Harrell?
I'm sorry, I just had one quick question, and maybe it was shared at academics, but, and maybe this is for Dr. Jordan, but the arrangement with Trinity University to have 5 graduate assistants and 2 interns, what will do we know what they'll be doing and where they'll be?
That's in psych services. That's kind of a grow your own. LSSPs are another area that's very hard to find, and so that's kind of a grow your own program that we've been doing for a number of years.
Great. Thank you.
All right. All right, seeing no other questions, there is a motion before the board. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, the motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. Thank you, Board.
I'm going to get in front of you again, David, and then I'll stop, I promise. So before we go to item B, Ms. Chumley and members of the board, these are the 6 items that we typically bring to the board at the regular meeting in August that deal with the adoption of the final amended budget for the year that's closing and the adoption of the budget and tax rate for the year that is coming. And I want to do 2 things. I want to thank you for your study of these issues over the many months that we've been looking at our budget for the coming year. Thank you for your attention to these issues. These materials can get complex and time-consuming. And then I want to thank David and Wes and the folks in the budget office. Behind these proposals are literally thousands of hours of number crunching and work, and I want to thank those folks for their diligence all year long, but certainly at this time where we're kind of culminating this many months process. So thanks to those folks.
Thank you, Dr. Woods. I think you read my script, so I'm going to have to skip
Good.
skip a few things.
Cut some stuff out.
That's all right. There are a couple items I do want to mention. As Dr. Woods said, these next 6 items is the culmination of a year's worth of activity, and I would be remiss if I didn't express my gratitude and thanks to the board members, especially for exhibiting patience and attention to some very complex issues. I will tell you these 6 items were discussed last week at Finance Committee in great detail. We had a very packed agenda, and it was difficult keeping everybody awake, but we made it through that with these issues. And the last comment I'll make before I move into the individual items, I will tell you that in preparing this budget, we believe that the budget being considered this evening provides resources that address the uniqueness of 106,000 individuals that aspire to be great and inspire others to follow. So
I see. Way to
with
go.
that, we will lead into these items one by one. I'll give a brief explanation and background of each one, and ask the board to take action one at a time, please. The first item that we're bringing is the amended budget for 2016-17. This item is attached to your agenda item. If you care to dig down in the details, it does have the line item for the recommended adjustments for Budget Amendment 3. The current amended budget that you see in your agenda item does include all the adjustments that we've made here, which is included in Budget Amendment 1 and Budget Amendment 2, as well as the items that we're recommending this evening. The current adjustments in the general fund actually increased the appropriations a little under $25 million, and it also increases the estimated revenues just a little over $37 million. There's one line item that generates $20 million on both sides, and that is the result of the insurance proceeds from the 2016 hailstorm. We did receive a significant amount of dollars this year, $20 million to be exact. So that is a significant increase in the budget that we needed to account for. Other items that have generate the increase is we did have adjustments for campus wireless upgrades projects of about $1.8 million. We did have a one-time adjustment to our utilities of $1 million. Other maintenance projects about $500,000, and then other recurring items that we'll see in the base budget moving forward, that such as game officials, software, insurance premiums was a big dollar figure for us. All those amounted to about $840,000. Other revenue adjustments outside the $20 million included the increase from Medicaid reimbursements. That continues to be a successful program for us, and then also adjustments for our tax collections. That our estimates on taxes actually came in well above what we had anticipated this time last year. The adjustments to the child nutrition and debt service funds being recommended in the final amended budget, these are to adjust for line items for the anticipated actual activity for the year. Child nutrition is just operational adjustments, and the debt service funds, the biggest item there is the adjustment for other uses and other sources for the remarketing and refunding of bonds that we do with the debt management. So at this time, the administration would recommend approval of the amended budget as presented.
Mr. Lopez.
Madam President, this item was presented in the Finance Committee last week, and David did discuss the current adjustments being recommended for the final amendment budget that are to include in tonight's attachment, and unless any other board members have any comments, I move for approval of the 2016-17 amended budget as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the 2016-17 amended budget as presented. Seeing no questions, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, the motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. The next item that we have on the agenda is the commitment of fund balance resolution. Again, this is an annual item that we do bring to the board. Keep in mind that we do commitments in our fund balance, and we also do what we call assignments in our fund balance. The commitment level is actually at the board's level. We do bring those items by what they are and the amounts to the board for approval, and they're included in your fund balance resolution this evening. Those three items that we have, these are unchanged from last year, is the commitment for opening new schools. We actually bring the anticipated balance of those projects at this time, and that's $17,456,711. And then we also have the $25 million for the technology deployments. As one thing I explained with the Finance Committee, even though these commitments are at these amounts, what we will see on our financial statements is the actual balance of those projects on the financial statements. The only amount that's in the resolution that you'll approve as a resolution that you'll see in the financial statements unchanged is the third item, which is the commitment for future state revenue deficits, and Ms. Chumley had alluded to the model that we use. That is actually the one item that we actually manage our budget through that cycle and watch that number, and right now we're seeing it spin down, and that quite honestly is due to the finance system. But you can see that level is set at $76,818,135 for August 31, 2017. The assignments that we do have in the budget, actually the resolution does assign the ability to me specifically as the administrative individual that can designate those assignments and the amounts. I will tell you those are unchanged from last year. We are adding 2 assignments. I'm recommending adding 2 assignments to those that also I explained to the Finance Committee. And those are for the balance of the roofing projects. We don't want to lose track of that $20 million, especially since we're anticipating getting more. And also, some accounting issues has brought our deferred revenue for E-rate projects or revenues into the fund balance. In other words, we are recognizing that revenue, but to keep the integrity of those dollars to where we can access them for those specific projects, I'm again recommending assignment with that. Other than that, at this time, the administration would recommends approval of the fund balance resolution as presented.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
Madam President, this item was also presented to the Finance Committee last week. David did discuss the current changes to the current committed amounts for the new schools, technology deployment, and the reserve for state revenue deficits. Additionally, he did discuss the need to add assigned fund balance for roofing projects from the 2016 hailstorm and the E-rate projects from the E-rate funding. And unless any of the other members have any questions, I move that we approve for the fund balance resolution as presented, I'm sorry.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the fund balance resolution as presented. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, the motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Chumley. The next item that we do have on the agenda is the adoption of the district strategic financial plan for 2017-18, also known as the 2017-18 budget. It is also attached. It's a 4-page document in your agenda that meets the requirements of adopting the official budget. The official budget is defined as the general fund, the debt service fund, and the child nutrition fund, and that is actually what we're asking the board to consider this evening. However, in your presentation, we do present for memo purposes, for all practical purposes, is the special revenue funds and also the expected bond sale or the construction funds for 2017-18. That gives us an all-in budget for starting at this point for 2017-18 of a little over $1.3 billion. So we definitely are big business. Highlights of the general fund include expenditures set at $912 million, almost $913 million. You might notice that that is significantly less than our amended budget for 2016-17. How that happens is in our budgeting process, we have a base budget with recurring items that we move forward each year. What we add to that are one-time budget costs for a year. They get reversed out the next year, and right out of the gate we had a $20 million adjustment, so you can kind of see how that goes up and down from the amended to the adopted budget. But I do get from time to time, sometimes I have to tell myself the answer because it just looks funny. But in our process of developing this budget 2017-18, other than the base budget of recurring items, the large ticket items the board typically addresses early on. We actually bring the growth and improvement and the compensation discussion to the board in April, and actually try to bring that recommendation we did with the growth and improvement in June. Other items that we add beyond that will be adjustments for the health insurance. This year we're adding a cost of a little over $2.5 million in the budget recommendation, and then also the use of our committed balances and technology deployment. I think is scheduled for $4 million in the 17-18 budget. Those aren't typically included in the growth and improvement, so we do bring those out of allocation at this particular time. I've already given you the total estimated expenditures for all-in funds at a little over $1.3 billion. And at this time, the administration recommends approval of the 2017-18 proposed budget as presented.
Thank you, David. Mr. Lopez.
Madam President, this item was presented to the Finance Committee last week. David did discuss these did discuss the makeup of the three funds making up the district's official budget: the general fund, debt service fund, and the child nutrition fund. Estimated revenues and appropriations were discussed for each, and the anticipated source of fund balance required from the general fund to support the proposed budget. And unless any of the other members have any comments, I move for approval of the 2017-2018 proposed budget as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the adoption of the 2017-18 budget as presented. Are there any questions from the board? David, I just have one.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm always interested in our estimated year-end sweep. So on the final amendment budget that we just did, we changed that from 21 million to 42 million.
Yes, ma'am.
Yet on our budget, proposed budget of 17-18, we're back to 22.7
Yes, ma'am.
as our estimate.
Right.
So was there something else, I mean, that caused us to have that large?
That's a great question.
The 20 million inhaled.
That's what I was wondering.
Yes,
Is that where, because then there's a line item further up though in the budget that shows the money from the hail damage?
Right.
So that's why I didn't know if it was included in the year-end sweep.
It is. It is.
Okay.
Typically, what we do on the sweep is the sweep is somewhat formula driven. However, when you get to a large ticket like that, what happened for 16-17 is we received the 20 million, so that's going to increase the sweep if we don't spend it, which is exactly what happened. I think we ended up the assignment that I was talking about is like $19 million, so that's 2 years of the 5 million and 20 million, but that's the budgeted amount that, for all practical purposes, you have to increase your sweep for. So we're back to formula in the adopted budget.
Okay, all right, that's what, on that. And
Yes,
then with the resolution we've just passed where we've assigned it, so we are putting that aside, so.
Exactly.
That's not
We
something.
don't, right.
And so at that point then, let's say that we don't use all of that next year when we do our year-end sweep, since that's assigned to a specific
Right.
budget item, that won't impact our year-end sweep then,
Exactly.
like it did
You are
this past
exactly
year.
right. Exactly right.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Exactly.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and there, seeing no questions, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, the motion carries.
The last three items that we have actually deal with the recommended tax rate for 2017-18. The first item that we look at is actually a calculation from the Bexar County tax assessor collector. By requirement, they would calculate the district's effective tax rate and rollback rate. These rates are actually calculated when we do our truth in taxation calculations. So your attachment to this particular item actually has those two items. First, the effective tax rate, and quite frankly, that's not used in any calculations. We don't really calculate rollbacks from an effective tax rate, much like cities and counties do, but it's just something that still is in statute and must be calculated. The one calculation that is critical to us, however, is the rollback rate, and that is a two-piece component calculation. The first is on the M&O side, and for school districts, that's actually a lesser of calculation. In our case, that lesser of is our compressed rate, which is $1 plus 4 cents. That makes up one component of our rollback rate. And then the second component is calculated on our debt requirement needs. Keep in mind that we did bring a resolution to the board to defease and remit an additional $9 million that basically gave us the ability to set our tax rate exactly where it was. So this is a matter of routine, quite frankly, and administration has reviewed it. and has no problem with the calculations. We agree with them 100%. So at this time, the administration recommends approval to accept the effective tax rate and rollback rate for the tax year 2017 for the Northside Independent School District.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez.
Madam President, this item was presented to the Finance Committee last week. David discussed that these required rates are the result of truth in taxation calculations, and the district's recommended tax rate is less than the rollback tax rate. And unless any other members have any comments, I move for approval of the effective tax rate and the rollback rate as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the effective tax rate and rollback tax rate for the year 2017. Are there any questions from the board? Bless you.
Yes.
Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, the motion carries.
Thank you, Ms. Gentleman. We're almost through. Everybody hang in there. The next item that we have is the approval of the
Bless you.
certified appraisal rolls. These are the actual summaries of the certified rolls that came from the county, the chief appraiser of the counties of Bandera, Medina, and Bear. This is actually creates our value for taxation. When we do set a tax rate, they will be applied to these particular values, as well as truth and taxation numbers. So your attachments in your agenda has those three counties separated. And at this time, the administration would recommend approval to accept the certified appraisal rules for tax year 2017 for the Northside Independent School District.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez?
Madam President, this item was presented to the Finance Committee last week, and David did discuss that these are summaries of the values certified by the chief appraiser of the three counties, and these values are used in truth and taxation calculations, as well as in setting the tax roll for the district. And unless any other members have comment, I move for approval of the Northside ISD certified appraisal rolls from Bandera County, Bexar County, and Medina County as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the certified appraisal rolls for Northside ISD. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, motion carries. Last one.
The very last item, this is, we have followed the protocol as far as adopting a budget, which we must do prior to setting a tax rate. And also, we conducted a public hearing that was done last week where we did discuss both the budget and the proposed tax rate for 2017. The order attached to your agenda actually is the legalese for setting this tax rate, the ordinance to set the tax rate. I will remind the board that it does require specific motion language. I've also attached that to your agenda and also put a hard copy next to your place at the dais. So at this time, the administration recommends approval of an order fixing and levying the Northside Independent School District ad valorem taxes for the year 2017-2018, directing the assessment and collection thereof and other matters in connection therewith, with the following motion. I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of the tax rate of $1.3755 on each $100 value of taxable value property, which is effectively a 3.34% increase in the tax rate, and the order presented be finally passed and adopted. So whoever makes that motion, please read it as such. Thank you.
Mr. Lopez.
And slowly, right?
And slowly.
We have copies. It doesn't need to be slow.
Okay. Madam President, the item was presented to Finance Committee last week. David discussed the attached ordinance would set the district's rate at $1.3755 per $100 of taxable valuation. The recommended tax rate is unchanged for the last 7 years. Unless there is comment from any other members, I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of the tax rate of $1.3755 on each $100 of taxable value of property, which is effectively a 3.34% increase in the tax rate, and that the order presented be finally passed and adopted.
Thank you. Ms. Freeman? Well, first, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and then Ms. Freeman?
Yeah, I just have a comment, and I understand that this is required motion language. And I appreciate, Gerald, the fact that you stated that our tax rate has not increased in the last 7 years, even though the way the motion is read, it leads people to believe that we have increased the tax rate and that we are increasing the tax rate by adopting this. And
Session thing.
I just wanted to, because we've got people in the audience and they're going to be people, I don't know if anybody's watching this or not, but I don't know if you'd have something to say to that, Mr. Rastellini?
Well, you know, I can tell you mechanically, when values go up in the same tax rate, that's absolutely true. What's not told in all of that, at least for school districts, is that at the same time where we have increasing values, we have decreasing state revenues, but that's not part of your motion.
Thank you. I just had to mention that.
Good point.
That's a good point. Because I was reading it and I knew that, but it doesn't sound right.
Yes.
Alda, any other questions from the board? All right, there's a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, the motion carries.
That concludes my items for this evening.
Woohoo!
You know, David, we've been really fortunate, I think, strong deputy superintendents of finance, and I think that you are continuing that in Norfolk, you and your staff, and so we really just appreciate, I think I've turned my mic off. We appreciate all the work that you do, and I know that it may seem like we are just going through this, but we've spent hours and hours on this, and Gerald, thank you very much on your chairmanship of the Finance Committee. I know that y'all spend a tremendous amount of time on that as well, and all of the committee members too. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next item of business on the agenda is the administration. I think, Mr. Galindo, the Student Code of Conduct?
Yes, Ms. Chumley, Dr. Woods, members of the board. Recently, we had two pieces of legislation that affected our Student Code of Conduct. The first one was House Bill 674, and the second one was Senate Bill 179, and there's actually an attachment there if you'd like to follow. More specifically, HB 674 deals with out-of-school suspensions, and really out-of-school suspensions for students in kinder, first, and second. And you now have, and we have in statute, and now, of course, as I said, in our Student Code of Conduct, language there that prohibits anyone in K1 and 2 to be out of school suspended. And so what you see there in your attachment is the language that'll go into our actual student handbook that addresses the requirement now that we have in statutes. The second one, Senate Bill 179, also known as David's Law, deals with bullying. And specifically now, what you see there, if you follow, is that we now have to have in writing in our handbook the consequences that include or can be included as part of bullying. And so we've added this as a number 12 under category 2. We have, you may remember, 4 different categories of offenses, and so that will be added as a number 12 in our Student Code of Conduct. The law also requires that we have the definition of bullying, and so we've had that for years now. But if you look and follow along, you'll see that specifically now we also include as B, we have A as a definition, and then B, which specifically includes and has the language of cyberbullying. And then we go on to be even more specific, as again as required by law, to give you some more detail as to what cyberbullying includes and is now part of the whole definition of bullying. And so you'll see that in detail, and then to finish off the third piece of this required legislation is reporting procedures. And there again, for years now, we, through our use of SafeLine, have had a reporting process that any individual, community, student, parent can anonymously report any type of bullying. And so we'll stress that to, of course, our parents, students, and community. And so that piece is the last that's required and then now going to be in our student code of conduct, and of course will be in our handbook. So, Ms. Chumley, the action for tonight is that we approve these changes and we move forward and include them as part of our student code of conduct.
Thank you, Mr. Galindo. Do any trustees have any questions? If y'all will, I need to read this just real quick, Ray, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And we did, of course, discuss this in policy as well.
And I've gone completely blank on who our chairman is of policy. I believe it's Karen. Karen, if you, as chairman of policy, is there anything you'd like to share?
Now, we did discuss this fully in policy committee, and I would move approval.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the changes in the student code of conduct. Are there any questions from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
Thank you.
Certainly. The next item of business on the agenda is the Declaration of Respect. Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Chumley, thank you. As we discussed the changes to the student code of conduct, especially those generated by David's Law, I think it was Mrs. Freeman that suggested that perhaps this would be a good time for us to address, as we do each year, the Declaration of Respect. And board members know that each year our counseling department, led by Dr. Kim Ridgely, who wasn't able to be here tonight, had some surgery, wasn't able to be here. So I want to thank Nadiria Hartley and Roland Wattis from our counseling department for being here. Thank you all for representing tonight. Each of the counselors on our campus teaches a lesson around the Declaration of Respect, and then students and staff are asked to participate and to pledge their support for our anti-bullying efforts. So we thought that these two items, again, at Ms. Freeman's suggestion, would go well together. So with the permission of the board, we would bring up our big blown-up certificate that's the Declaration of Respect and ask each of the board member, and I would be pleased to sign it on behalf of staff.
That's great.
The code of conduct?
No,
Karen made the motion.
Yeah, Karen made the motion.
You have in your computer work on it.
Yeah, we approved the code of conduct.
Oh, sorry.
I know. And this is asking for approval.
And we don't need approval on that.
Okay, I didn't think
No.
so.
That's
All
another
right.
reason we moved on.
You second? I'm pulling her name.
We'll keep guessing. Everybody has a nickname. Sure. It's Christian basketball player. Now you are hair. For everybody. I saw the original picture. It was a crop to get that.
Nep and something else for us. Nothing flowers or nep?
I think it's me.
I was working, I was between.
No,
Yes.
Do you want to put that in there? From us? From all of us?
Of handwriting penmanship, yes.
Oh, okay. I got you.
And then I just said it.
You all have different penmanship.
And then here comes teachers.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the other piece
All right, you want us down there? Okay.
I know, but
we all look like
I'll just have, because it goes thin now, then it's, yeah, good, I'm glad.
Now come on up. Y'all can help on the sign.
Thank y'all for doing this. Appreciate you.
Can you guys step out a little bit if I can get Joseph and Bobby in the, kind of in the.
Squish. Squish. Come on, love on each
Katie?
other.
What?
Okay, Ray, although it's already been approved, I do have one question on the cyberbullying.
Sure.
We've had incidents before where somebody sends something, and then it just escalates. So somebody tweets something or Snapchats or Instagrams or whatever, and then it just escalates. And we had one at O'Connor where they created something on social media, and it got really, really, really ugly, disrupted a tremendous amount of kids, and then we had to call the kids' parents to get them to delete it. So when you're talking about cyberbullying, so student A creates whatever this was. I don't think it was something you could delete, so it couldn't be Facebook. So maybe it's a post or a Twitter, I don't know. But anyway, so he created this, and then student B added nasty remarks, and student C added nasty remarks, and student D. So by the time it's done, you have 20 kids that have added these nasty remarks. So do all 20 of those students that participated in this, would they all fall into being punished under this?
Potentially, yes. I mean, obviously, we would have to investigate and get down into the details of it all and try to get to the root of it all as far as who may have started and what the issue was. But the answer to your question is potentially it could be all of them, yes.
Okay. All right, so one more. Another one we've had. Someone takes a picture of someone during PE, and people like it, don't like it, do whatever. If they participate in that manner, they still would fall within this.
Yeah, it's considered, yes, an
I'm
electronic.
glad. I'm all for that. But I do think that we need to make sure that this is communicated to our students, that if they contribute, because I can hear kids saying, well, I didn't do anything, I just looked at it. Well, if you liked it and that was a picture of someone that was inappropriate, then I think that you should be punished under this. But I think, Ray, we need to make sure that our students know that if, you know, they may think that it's not harming anyone if they get onto this tail, but that they can be just in just as much trouble by even participating in this. And I don't know if our students are going to be aware of that, because I think sometimes they think that it's harmless when if they're not the one who originated it and they don't send it to someone else, they think that they haven't contributed to this.
Well, we will reiterate and stress, and already have, and will continue from everything from class discussions to, of course, even assemblies in some cases, to include this topic in terms of discipline conversations that we have with students.
Okay, and then one other. I start one of these on a Saturday, not at a school function. I'm not at school. I start this on a Saturday. It bleeds over on a Monday, where it has now disrupted our educational process. Same thing applies. It doesn't matter if I started it on Saturday, I am still going to be punishable. My actions will still be punishable under this.
If after an investigation, yes, we feel that we need to, then yes, that
Yeah, time and
includes
place
weekends,
doesn't matter.
does not.
Time and place
and it's in
doesn't matter
statute,
if
yeah.
it comes into our schools. Okay, I think that's great. I'm really glad we have that. Okay, the next item of business on the agenda, I don't know how to get out of what I'm in. Okay. The next item of business on the agenda is the endorsement for the TASB Board of Directors. And what I wanted to ask a question or clarification on, because Karen, when you look at who's listed under Region 20, there's a Director A and Director B. You're already, so this doesn't impact you in any manner at all? No. Okay, so what we have before us is we have an individual that is requesting that we endorse their candidacy to the TASB Board of Directors. And does the board want to take this action? Oh, Ms. Reed, I'm sorry. Katie, can you say? Yes, Katie?
This individual has already been serving on the TASB board and won that election a couple of years ago. And she is running unopposed and has, if you look at her resume, she's been on her local board for 21 years and is doing a great job. Every time we were up in Austin at this time, she was there and a very vocal person in supporting the public schools and the issues that we're supporting. So I personally think we should endorse her candidacy. You know, it's not where she's opposing somebody else. It's just she's the only candidate there. And she would just like to make sure that we agree that she should be elected.
Great. Do you want?
I would make that motion, please, to endorse.
All right. Ms. Freeman?
I was just going to say she is doing she's doing a great job on the board, and she is unopposed. This board has over time chosen to endorse and not chosen. Again, this person is running unopposed.
All right. Thank you. There's a motion on before the board. Are there any other questions? Mr. Blunt?
Yeah, just for clarification, unless something's changed, because everybody's using unopposed, and by the way, I'm for it, I just want to make sure I understand TASB process now. She's not unopposed yet. I mean, somebody can run from the floor, correct, or
Oh,
did they
that
drop
is-
that?
that
Yeah,
is
so
correct.
it's not really unopposed. Right now she is, but you could run from the floor. What she's trying to do, if she gets 50%
Yeah.
from this area, then she's got it and she's not opposed. Okay, but if it goes to the floor, somebody could run against her, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks, okay. But no, either way, I'm favorable for Rolinda without a doubt.
All right. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it and the motion carries. We have endorsed for TASB Board of Directors, Rolinda Schmidt
From Kerrville.
from Kerrville. All right, the next item of business is the board superintendent goals. Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Chumley, as you know, we worked on these for quite a while and have reviewed them about 3 weeks ago, and now bring these in final version for the board's approval.
Were these reviewed in any of our committees?
No, they've been reviewed by a full board.
By the full board, that's what I thought. Do any trustees have any questions, any comments? Can I have a motion to come before the board?
I'm actually,
Yes, Joseph?
real quickly.
Go ahead.
It was a year-long process, and I know and studied what we've been doing in the practices, and looking in comparison to the best practices. We also went into, I guess, improving our board superintendent goals, and I think as they're structured from this point, we're able to monitor and, provide feedback and, push through and reach those goals in a manner that is measurable and timely. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Lopez.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, when we went through this process, it was a learning process for me as well, and actually really understanding what it was that we do as board members, and looking at all of this. I feel very confident that we as a board and as a superintendent, we hammered out these ideas, and I just want to say thank you very much to all of you guys for really working on this and being open-minded to it as well. It took us all, a couple of hours to really kind of get our points across, but it was good, and I commend you guys or everybody for just being open-minded on this. So with that, I move that we approve the board and superintendent goals.
Thank you. Dr. Harrell?
No, the only other thing I was just going to add is, even after we discussed it, it was nice to know that there was still opportunities to impact and give some input. I really do now think it's a really rich and robust set of goals that reflect involvement from everyone, staff, teachers, but certainly parents now, and community, but now student leaders. And so I think that's a nice touch. I think it makes for really good goals. So thank you for that, and yeah, thanks for everyone having an open mind. That was great, and for wanting to narrow down so we can really make some progress. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Reed?
Yeah, I was not here when you hashed out a lot of these, so having looked at them the last couple of days, it's just nice to know that we have consolidated from what we did have, because it was just a very cumbersome, had become very cumbersome set of aspirations, I guess, that were sort of not part of us, but part of the staff rather than board superintendent goals. But I am delighted to see that we have now included the Student Leaders Advisory Committee and also the Middle School Task Force with parents, teachers, and students. I think one of the things did sessions this summer saying have more student involvement. And so now we do have it in here. I think that's great. So
I agree.
Thank you for working it out.
You're welcome. Thank you. Mr. Blunt?
This is a popular one, which is good, rightfully so. I was just going to remind the board, if we do approve that, if I recall correctly, I think we have some pretty immediate action out of it too, especially on the one on the campaign part for Northside.
Mm-hmm.
So, with school starting next week, remember what we had sort of said how we're going to engage further.
Yeah, right. Good point, Bobby. I just want to thank all of the board. I think that it was took a lot of effort, and I think just a lot of discussion in relation to how we got to where we were to start with. And I want to tell you what I really, really appreciated was that when Dr. Woods was talking about the district goals at convocation, they were goals that the 8 of us agreed on, and I really liked that that was what we were talking about when Brian was talking about what the goals were that were going to be in the district. They were goals that we've already had the discussion about and completely support and understand and give our complete backing to. And I really appreciated that piece of it, which I don't think with 30 goals we could have had that before.
I don't
So
have much time at convocation.
So, I think we have a motion and a second on the floor. There being no other questions, all those in favor, please signify by saying.
Oh, I don't think we second.
Yeah,
Oh, there was a second, okay.
yeah, I wasn't sure. I'd lost
Yeah, I
track.
didn't think there was either.
There wasn't, I'm sorry, I'd lost
Testing Alma.
I'd lost track on that.
Bobby did.
Bobby got it.
Bobby seconded it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Now we're good.
Keeping us honest. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the ayes have it, the motion carries. All right, Dr. Woods, I think this is one, I'm really excited for us to talk about this one. Hang on just a second, let me get this closed. One of our trustees, how many of our trustees now have been part of Leadership TASB? Bobby
Katie.
and Bobby and
Karen.
Karen, and now we have our third. Carol has been selected to be part of Leadership TASB, and so we need to approve her attendance and travel reimbursement related to her expenses for Leadership TASB. So, Mr. Lopez.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm excited.
I go ahead and I'll make a motion for approval of the acceptance of, or approval requested for travel reimbursement related to Dr. Harrell's participation in leadership.
Second.
Thank you.
All right.
Did I say it right?
Second.
That's good.
That's a motion
Yeah,
and
we're
a
good.
second. We're good. We're good. And Karen?
Just a comment. And Katie was a TASB officer when all of this started, so I don't know if she gets grandfathered or not, but
I think so.
I remember when we started Leadership TASB, so we put it together, so, yeah.
yes, ma'am. I know that the TASB board and TASB officers had a lot to do with supporting that, and congratulations, Carol. It's truly I would say a life-changing year. You meet people from across the state that perhaps you wouldn't necessarily have met in any other way. So that's just worth the time. Just that in meeting people from all different size districts, and so congratulations.
Thank you very
We're
much.
very proud of you and very
Thanks.
happy for you, Carol.
And while we're at it, we should also add our congratulations to your spouse.
Oh, thank you.
One of the few great things that the governor did. So please give Sid our congratulations.
Thank you. I will.
Oh, he's been appointed to fourth quarter
No,
No.
no.
administrative.
Full administrative judge for the court of something. Like,
It's a really long
he,
title.
yeah, it's the state's divided up into 8 regions, and so it's someone who oversees the actions and activities of all the judges in the district courts. It's the judge of the 4th Administrative Judicial Region. Fadular. Trying to think if there's an acronym. It's not. Yeah, we were.
So congratulations to the
Thank
both
you.
of you.
Thank you.
Said our congratulations.
Thanks.
Ms. Freeman.
I just have to add this. This is a congratulate Carol night. Carol has also been chosen
Yes.
to be on the State Board of Ed. Please tell me what that is, because I don't have my phone with me. But part of a
Long-range
a group.
planning for
Yes.
public ed.
Yeah.
So-
Congratulations.
Oh.
No, I think the good thing about that is that's a win for all of us. That'll
Have a
be
voice.
to have a voice about what can occur, what should occur, and what will occur with public ed. So yeah,
I think it's a
Well,
smart
a couple times
decision
and I'll say that.
by the state board to actually have an educator on a committee making suggestions about long-range plans for public education, not a charter school person, not a charter school parent, not a private school parent, but an actual educator that can bring, a true voice. So I'm real excited, Carol, about
too.
you doing that.
I am too.
Very
I
thankful
did
as
want
well.
to say real quick, though, on my application for the TASB leadership, I did say a couple things that I am writing on the back of um, those who came before me, and I mean that very seriously. Bobby, Katie, Melissa, and Karen, you guys were, very instrumental in mentoring and providing inspiration to continue serving on a deeper level. And I said, if I did say, when I do win again, I would do more to deepen the work in representing Northside in a as best possible ways I could. So that was one, but I did compliment our board in that what an honor, which now includes Gerald and Joseph, to work with y'all. Incredible. So whatever I learned that's new and different and wonderful will come back. So
Well, please do.
Thanks.
Please share. All right. Well, there's a motion on and a second on the floor that we approve the attendance at Leadership TASB, the reimbursement of travel for Leadership TASB. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it, the motion carries. Dr. Woods, we are to you, future
Yes,
agenda
ma'am.
items.
In your blue folder, Ms. Chumley, there are a number of items, but there are some that are common to all of them, and I want to point them out. One is your athletic, both get you in the stadium and your parking pass for athletic events, so please make sure you notice that. That doesn't go in the recycle bin. I also want to point out that we've got a sheet in each of your folders for TASB travel arrangements. If you could look at that and get that back to us as soon as possible, we'll work with you to make sure those travel arrangements are made. The other thing that I would just remind the board, because it's a this week event, I sent to you in last week's Friday letter an invitation from Bart Lecoq General Contractors to a luncheon that they're hosting for all of the faculty and staff at Holmes High School this Friday at noon. So if you're available, I just wanted to remind you that that invitation is out there. And that is all for future agenda items. Ms. Chumley?
All right. I'm not used to us not having that sheet that has all those things that you're thinking about for agendas on it.
Is that? Oh, it should be in there. It's attached in your agenda. I'm sorry. It is attached in your electronic agenda. Future meetings, you mean? Upcoming meetings?
Yes.
Yeah, it's.
Okay, nothing that you want to go over in relation to any of that?
No, I don't think so. What we have now is the kind of the standard items. But as you know, as we get nearer to those meetings, those agendas having a tendency to grow.
So, appointment of principal Carlos Coons?
close.
That's
No,
that's
that's a board
on our,
agenda item, guys.
right. We have a resignation for the end of the calendar year, so we'll do an appointment obviously prior to
Yeah,
that.
no, I'm sorry, guys, that's on open, I wouldn't have done that. Okay, all right, then at this point, we're ready to go into closed session. So during,
All right, sir.
in accordance with sections 551.071, 551.072, 3, 4, 76, 82, and 84 of the government codes, we are now going into closed session at 8, I can't see,
32.
at 8:32. All right, the board's reconvene in open session at 9:20. Is there anything to come before the board?
I would move that we proceed with the sites as discussed.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the sites as, proceed with the sites as discussed in closed session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Dr. Hall?
I move that we approve the administrative appointments as presented in closed session.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the administrative appointments as discussed in closed session. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. And we are adjourned.